What up, guys? It's your boy, The Hater, and today we're going to talk about AEW Double or Nothing, you know what I mean? Now, I was looking forward to this, actually, not because of the matches or anything like that, obviously, but I was looking forward to it because it was a 3-day weekend and I wanted to watch some wrestling, you know, it's been a while since I've had the opportunity to just sit down and watch a nice pay-per-view, you know, and I was actually going to pay for it. I ended up not being able to watch it on time because I was walking my dog, and quite frankly, I was having too much fun hanging out with my dog. That's how much I care about this. But nevertheless, let's get started with this review by me saying, what up, Cuts? It's your boy, The Hater. And one thing that I did not watch was the pre-show. Apparently, Hookhausen, which is Hook, who rules, and Danhausen, who sucks, they beat Tony Nese and Mark Sterling. I don't really care about Tony Nese. I don't really care about Danhausen. And honestly, I don't care about Hook either if they're going to put him in this situation, you know? People keep saying, oh, Hookhausen is over. No, they're not over. It's stupid. They're pre-show over. If they were over, they'd be in the main card. That's neither here nor there. I didn't watch the match, so I don't have much to say about it, you know? Next up, the first match, the first real match, the opening match of the pay-per-view segment of the card. Wardlow versus MJF, you know? I'm starting to think MJF is on his way to WWE. Maybe this has already been announced and I just don't know about it. But, like, he got buried here by Wardlow. Now, should he get buried by Wardlow? Of course, absolutely. Wardlow's awesome, you know? And MJF sucks. So, of course, he should be getting buried by Wardlow. But the facts are what the facts are. I mean, you know, you have this MJF guy, right? And, like, what's his record? You know what I mean? What's MJF's record this year? I'm Googling it as we speak, right? I know that he hasn't won that many matches. And even if he has, right, he hasn't wrestled that many times. So it's like, what the hell's the point, really, of MJF, you know? Wardlow destroyed him. It was a fun little opener in many ways, specifically because, you know, Wardlow just like, eventually got his hands on him. The whole premise of the match was Wardlow eventually gets his hands on MJF and does like 10 power bombs, which causes MJF to get his ass pinned, you know what I mean? So, nothing really special here, but I will say, he's in 2022, get ready for this, Cucks, MJF is 1-3. All right, enough said. That's how much of a jobber this guy is. Anyways, it was a good opener because it was different for a pay-per-view match at least, you know. It was just a straight-up squash match. Hopefully there's bright things into MJF's future in WWE. And by hopefully, I mean no one really cares. But hopefully there's some good opportunities for Wardlow in the future as well, because Wardlow's pretty cool. Now, another thing I didn't like about this match was that for some reason, the stupid stipulation that, like, if Wardlow loses, he's basically banned from AEW. You can't sign a contract with AEW. Considering this stipulation, there was no point in Wardlow wanting to punish MJF. You know, he could make MJF's life a living hell the next few weeks if he wanted to. But Wardlow's, like, entire motivation in this match should have been to quickly destroy and pin MJF. You know, Wardlow should be going for roll-ups. Wardlow should be, and so should MJF, right? Because the match actually had some stakes. It wasn't just like a payoff, right? The match had some stakes. If they wanted to do it like that, they could have had this match be like a good 10-minute match. Wardlow wins by roll-up or by one powerbomb, and then they have like a rematch next month, and then you do this squash match in the rematch, right? If you really want to have it like this. Otherwise, don't have the stipulation. Because the entire match, in my opinion, even though it was enjoyable, it was kind of ruined by the stipulation. Because it's like, at one point, Wardlow does 4 powerbombs and puts his foot on MJF. And then he, like, removes his foot, you know, to signify that he wants to do more damage. Which is all fine and dandy, except for what if MJF counters, right, and pins you? Now you're out of a job. You know, that doesn't make any sense based on the way that the characters have been presented. To be fair, though, Wardlow has been presented as being relatively indifferent and just wanting to kick MJF's ass. So it wasn't the worst, but not a good decision in my opinion. It certainly wasn't the worst. I would go as far as saying as this was probably one of the best matches of the night, if not the match of the night, in terms of, like, presentation and overall appeal. You know, next up we have the Hardys versus the Young Bucks. We've seen this match a million times. I don't want to see it anymore. You know, the match was shit. It was not good. Jeff Hardy was all over the place. You know, he tried to do the Whisper in the Wind. It took him like 10 years to do it, and he still did it, right? Matt Hardy did not look good. You know, he was, you know, I don't want to say he's Fat Hardy again, but he was looking a little chubby, you know? And it's like, I get it. You don't have to really try when you're in AEW because it's like you're Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy. You know, at this point, these guys are legends. But it's like, there comes a point where, like, you know, I'm not saying hang it up. They're not there yet. But it's like, if you stop trying, hang it up, you know? They can both go. Like, the Hardy Boys can both go. During the match, the announcers kept saying, like, oh, what if the Young Bucks have surpassed the Hardys? And it's like, first of all, they lost the match. So there goes that theory right there. They lost the match to, like, you know, way past their prime Hardy Boys, even the way it's presented. Like, the announcers kept saying, like, oh, these guys are a little older, you know? Like, you could just say they're in their primes. Like, I remember as if it was today, the end of the Royal Rumble that Undertaker won, when it was Taker and Shawn Michaels, right? And JBL's like, Mago. He's like, he was like, Mago, we're seeing like these two legends in their primes. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, they're both like in their mid-40s. They're not in their primes. Like, Shawn Michaels not in his prime. Undertaker sure as hell is not in his prime. But it doesn't matter. JBL was saying, we got two athletes in their primes, Mago, right? So, like, the point was, it doesn't matter if they're in their prime or not. Like, JBL is going to present it as that because that's what people want to see. They want to see them in their prime. The fact that they're not in their prime doesn't mean that you can't say they're in their prime, right? It's a fake sport, so you can say whatever the hell you want, you know? But anyways, clearly they weren't in their prime and they weren't wrestling like they were in their prime. But the mere suggestion that somehow the Young Bucks have surpassed the Hardys it's just laughable. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. And actually, there was a few things that surpassed it in the same pay-per-view, but I'll get to that later, right? But it's so stupid because it's like the Hardy Boys have main evented, like in the tag team scene, that is. They've main evented WrestleManias. Like, they've been in the tag team title match at WrestleMania like several times, and one of them they've won, right? The Hardy Boys have been like multiple-time WWE, and they've also been like a one-time WCW champion, right? They've been champions like pretty much everywhere except for AEW, and they're going to get that too eventually, I'm sure, right? But the Hardy Boys are honestly one of the best tag teams of all time in terms of accolades. I think it's the Dudleys personally, but the Hardy Boys are right there. They were my favorites as a child. The Hardy Boys are like 20 years ago, when wrestling was good, they were in the tag team title match at 2 consecutive WrestleManias, arguably 2 of the biggest WrestleManias ever, at least up until that point, right? So the suggestion that the Young Bucks have surpassed the Hardys because they were in Japan and they beat like Ryusuke Taguchi and some other jabron is ridiculous. It's just laughable. It's so stupid. They're not even in the same universe. You know, like I would rank like if the Young Bucks went to NXT, like first of all, if they went to WWE, they would go to NXT first. That's a fact, right? And they would be out there, you know, in an MSK position. That's where they're at. Like, that's their level. You know what I mean? Just like Fish and O'Reilly, right? They would trade wins with Fish and O'Reilly all the time. But nobody would ever suggest that Fish and O'Reilly, Red Dragon, have surpassed the Hardy Boys. It's just ridiculous and, in my opinion, disrespectful. The match, I thought it was garbage. I didn't like it at all. It was also completely meaningless. Next up, we had Jade Cargill versus Anna Jay by pinfall. The match was harmless. I like Jade Cargill. The match itself was harmless until the very end, right? First of all, it looks like smart Mark Sterling is no longer going to be associated with Jade Cargill. I don't know why. It was working out just fine. Stokely Hathaway comes out. You may know him as Malcolm Bivens, right? From fucking NXT. He was the mouthpiece of the Diamond Mine. You know what I mean? His name in the Indies was Stokely Hathaway. You know, it's kind of clever if you ask me to go from Stokely to Malcolm. So that was cool for WWE. But basically, this guy has never contributed anything to any promotion he's ever been in. I'm familiar with him. He was in ROH, I think it was, right? I've seen him before, for sure, right? And he's just that guy who talks. Like, he's not like especially good on the mic, but he came out and people were reacting, right? And it really painted the picture correctly, you know? It really showed that AEW is just starving for stars and starving for moments. Because when Stokely Hathaway comes out and people get excited for it, it's like, you know, they're forcing themselves to get excited. Nobody really gives a damn about Stokely Hathaway. Not even the biggest of smarks cares about Stokely Hathaway. If Stokely Hathaway, like, if people never saw Stokely Hathaway in wrestling ever again, like, nobody would care. Like, not one person went to bed last night thinking, you know what made that show? The debut of Stokely Hathaway. And the announcers have to, like, pretend that they care, right? Luckily, JR was there, and JR pretty much said he doesn't give a rat's ass because moments after, the fallen goddess Athena, also known as Ember Moon, made her debut, right? She was looking stupid. She was moving stupid. Her theme song was stupid. Athena sucks. Ember Moon sucks. Ruby Soho sucks. Everyone else in this match and the other women's matches sucks, right? But she came out, and then JR basically said, he's like, oh, I care more. He straight up said it. He's like, oh, I care more about Ember Moon, about Athena, than I do about Stokely, right? Because JR's like, who the hell is Stokely? Like, he might as well have said, who the hell is Stokely, and why does anyone care about this jobber, right? But anyways, Stokely has been now added to the Jade Cargill group. I forget what they're called. Like the 3 black girls, I forget what they're called. I don't like the other 2. Like they're dumb, you know? Jade Cargill rules. The other 2 were like holding, they were holding Anna Jay by the arms, but it was one of those like holds where it's like anyone could get out of it, you know? And then like Athena came out and saved the day, you know? I have no desire to see what happens with this. I couldn't give a rat's ass. I hope Athena and Ruby Soho become a tag team and they get jobbed out to everybody. I don't like either of them. They're both shit, you know? So there you go. Next up, we have the House of Black versus Death Triangle. This was a predictable bullshit match, but it was one of the good ones, right? I gotta say, the House of Black versus Death Triangle. I hate to say it, but there are a few good wrestlers in this match, right? First of all, you have Pac, Penta Oscuro, and Rey Fenix, which are three of the best guys in AEW. Then on the other side of the coin, you have, I hate to say it, motherfucks, I hate to say it, but Buddy Matthews, I mean, there's a lot wrong with Buddy Matthews, but the facts are what the facts are. I'll put it to you this way. If Buddy Matthews never wrestled in NXT and he was in New Japan, he would be on the level of like Jay White and Okada right now. Like that's where he would be, because he's like a great indie wrestler. Like he's athletic, he's good at what he does, but the problem is, just like everybody else in the indies, he does not understand wrestling. Now think about this. When the people came out, right? They come out with their ridiculous death metal song, right? And one of them, the leader, is called Malachi Black. That's like right there with Lucius Malfoy, who I'm told is a Harry Potter character because I never read that garbage, right? Right up there with Lucius Malfoy in the most evil-sounding names ever, right? You might as well call him Evil McBad Guy, right? Malachi Black and his two cohorts, right? His two cohorts, you would think it'd be like something dark and evil-sounding, right? No, it's a guy named Brody and a guy named Buddy. You know, you could take Buddy and Brody and make them into like a hick country boy tag team if you wanted, right? There's nothing inspired about the House of Black. Like, why is the guy in House of Black called Buddy Matthews? Why didn't he rebrand himself as something else? This is what happens when people know what they're doing. Perfect example. When Dennis, whatever his name is, became Midian, when he joined, when Dennis, I forget the guy's last name, but Dennis joins the Ministry of Darkness, and he is rebranded as Midian, right? King Mabel joins, and he is rebranded as Viscera. Bradshaw and Farouk, even though they maintain their names are badass, but they are put together and they are rebranded as the Acolytes, right? They have to be associated with the Undertaker. Then you have the Brood, which fits right in because they're like vampires, right? But you need to fit into the stable, right? So everyone there fit in. The only ones that really didn't were Bradshaw and Farouk, and even they, they had a lot of design changes. Right, like Bradshaw dyed his hair pitch black. They got the little paint in their chest, right, and their tights and everything, right. Buddy Matthews comes out there as Buddy Matthews. I mean, that's just preposterous. You know what I mean? It's just stupid. It would be the equivalent of starting like a Japanese stable and putting in like a white guy and then having him just be called like the white guy. You might as well just do that, right? It was really stupid. I don't like the House of Black as a concept primarily for that reason. Then Julia Hart comes in, and she spits the black mist into the eyes of Pac, which allows him to get kicked in the face by Malachi Black and get pinned. Why is Julia Hart, I've been following the storyline, but why is she wearing all black, right? Doesn't she know that you don't have to do that? You can just come out exactly as you were and just call yourself Julia Hart, just like Buddy Matthews is doing, right? Especially considering that Buddy Matthews, that was his debut in AEW. You know, they had the opportunity to do it before. They don't have to even repackage him. But never mind. That's neither here nor there. The match was pretty good, but there was a lot of good botches. A lot of good botches in here. First of all, Brody King, I hate to say it, but he did a few good moves. You know, he was impressive in some ways and very shitty in some others. He was supposed to catch someone in a suplex. Failed completely. He did this whole thing where he was going to dive over the top rope. Completely missed. He miffed. He miffed the dive completely. And JR's like, oh, he hit the apron more than he hit his opponent. And then Excalibur's like, yeah, but even getting touched a little bit by Brody King is enough because he's a big guy. Like, they're trying to cover his ass, but the fact is he missed. It would have been better to be like he missed. You know, he missed. Like botches should be treated like what they are. The person missed. You know, like if Evan Bourne goes for the shooting star press and misses as part of the match, right? The announcers are like, oh, he missed. If he misses as part of a job, he missed. Same thing happened. It's so much easier to cover that way. Anyways, next up we had Adam Cole versus Samoa Joe in a match that nobody else in the world would care about other than these two, right? They kept showing Owen Hart's widow, Dr. Martha Hart. I feel bad for this woman. They kept showing her on AEW Dynamite, and she came out to present the trophies. I just feel bad for her. It feels very exploitative to me, but I guess it's better than like not mentioning it at all. It is what it is. Before the match, this was like some other thing that I consider to be the dumbest thing I've heard in my life. Definitely dumbest thing I heard last night, I'll tell you that. Right? They have Adam Cole, and he's out there, and this asshole has the nerve to say the Owen Hart Memorial Tournament is one of the most prestigious, if not the most prestigious tournament in all of pro wrestling. What? Says who? They haven't even had one yet. He's in the finals. What's prestigious about it? You might as well call it what it is. The mid-card jobber tournament. And I like Owen Hart. I always have. I like his story. I like the kind of man he appears to have been, right? He is right there. Like, right there. I started watching wrestling right after Owen Hart died. But, like, back then, I would go to Blockbuster and get, like, the older pay-per-views. So I was familiar with who he was. You know what I mean? Like, I saw him in matches, like that happened, like, I'm talking literally months before I started watching wrestling. Like, I started watching wrestling, like, in, like, 1999, like, the summer of 1999, I think it was, right? I think he died in 1999, or it was in 1988, whatever. The point is, right after he died, like, Jeff Jarrett became, like, Intercontinental Champion, and then D'Lo Brown became Eurocontinental Champion, and that's where I started watching, right? So, like, I am familiar with Owen Hart, but I'm going to say it like it is. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Owen Hart was, like, this legendary wrestler on the level of, like, The Rock or Stone Cold. He was a mid-carder. Let's be honest. He was a mid-carder. He was on the level of, like, Xavier Woods, if we're being honest, right? Now, I like him. Obviously, his death is a huge tragedy, right? But they're presenting it as if Owen Hart was a legend. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't a legend. He wasn't a legend at all. Back then, he was like trading wins and losses with like draws. You know what I mean? And D'Lo Brown, he's like on their level, which is not to say that it's a bad level. He had his career ahead of him. He could have become one of the best for sure, but he didn't. It's just like Eddie Guerrero, right? Eddie Guerrero, a solid B+ wrestler, a solid A+ caliber talent. But in terms of like the way he was presented, Eddie Guerrero's like a one-time world champion and perennial like mid-carder. He's like on the level of Kofi Kingston. Nobody wants to admit that though because it sounds kind of dirty, but it's true. Like Eddie Guerrero is basically Kofi Kingston. He had like one run with a title that involved WrestleMania, and then that's it. Like after that, it was mid-card city for this kid. So that's what I gotta say about that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Adam Cole wins that. Next up, Britt Baker beats Ruby Soho to win the other one, to win the women's thing. It was a nice little touch to have them both win. They came out, they clapped. Owen Hart's widow came. That woman was like, okay, I didn't even fast forward it with my friend. So it was good. It was what it was, right? Next up, we had American Top Team versus, which is Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky, and Paige Van Zandt versus, what's it called? Kazarian, Sammy Guevara, and Tay Conti. This was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. First of all, Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti remind me of Kip Sabian, whatever the fuck his name is, Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. It's the same exact shtick. It's the same garbage. Nobody wants to see it. Neither of these guys are cool enough to pull this off. Sammy Guevara is a fucking twat, okay? I don't like this guy. Never have, motherfucks, you know what I'm saying? And he comes out there with Tay Conti, right? And they're doing this like we're in love and like obnoxiously so gimmick, right? And they're interfering in their own match, basically. They're sabotaging themselves. And there's a part where Frankie Kazarian was going to basically say, like, go fuck yourselves, and he was going to, like, abandon the match, right? But this was so poorly done. Because Frankie Kazarian comes in, because like, Sammy's like, come on, Frankie, come on, right? And the implications were that, like, obviously Frankie Kazarian was going to turn his back on him, right? But the announcers, they didn't wait for Frankie Kazarian to do this. They just straight up said, they're like, Frankie Kazarian turned his back, right? And then, like, in 20 seconds later, Frank Kazarian says, screw you, you son of a bitch, and turns his back on him, right? So it's like the announcers knew what was happening, so there was no need for Frank Kazarian to like do this over dramatic, like, nah, I'm going to turn my back on you. It was so evident. It was so telegraphed, right? Then afterwards, like literally 15 seconds after Frank Kazarian does this, he's back in the match. He's back in the match contributing. You can't just do that. You can't just be like, screw you and then come back. It doesn't make any sense at all, Like, especially considering that Kazarian had, like, the opportunity to challenge for the TNT Championship taken away from him, right? So he should like, just shut his mouth and take it seriously. Same thing with Sammy Guevara, right? For the fact that this match had actual implications, it wasn't treated seriously at all. It was a horrible match. I give it a 0 out of 10 up in this piece. Next up, we had Darby Allin versus Cuck O'Reilly. I actually enjoyed this one a little bit. First of all, I can't really get behind Kyle O'Reilly just because now I completely associate him with Von Wagner from NXT, so I can't get past that. But the facts are what the facts are. Kyle O'Reilly's never going to be like a main eventer. He just isn't. Simple as that. Like all of a sudden last year he's turning on Adam Cole, and all of a sudden he's like a serious guy. What the hell? What the hell was that all about, right? And now he's gonna do the same thing eventually, I'm sure. But nobody really cares. The only thing that was interesting here was that Kyle O'Reilly won. I never in a million years would have thought that Kyle O'Reilly would win. I just automatically assumed he was going to be fodder for Darby Allin. This really goes to show how low the AEW superstars rank, right? They rank so low. They rank so low that an NXT jobber can come in and beat Darby Allin, who was out there wrestling CM Punk like last year. You know what I mean? Enough said. Next up, Thunder Rosa beat Serena Deeb. I'm actually one of the few people that actually enjoys Serena Deeb. I know people don't like her, but I like her. I like Serena Deeb because her promo, even though it was shit, number one, it was better than any promo that Thunder Rosa has ever cut. But it was true. I liked it because it was true. I don't care about the Goldust stuff. I didn't even know she knew him. Who cares? But the facts are what the facts are. For those of you that remember back in the day when CM Punk had the Jericho Society, he got Serena Deeb, but she was like a plant in the crowd. She came up and he shaved her head and she joined the society, right? And it's like, dude, this woman really shaved her head. She shaved her head for the sport that she likes, right? And she was talking about she got implants to impress like perverted old men, hint, hint, right? Like, it was real. It was raw. And there's no reason why Serena Deeb shouldn't be champion. Especially considering that Thunder Rosa, there's nothing about her that's interesting. Thunder Rosa sucks. Like, I don't understand why people even like this broad. What's so great about her? I really don't get it, and I don't really give a rat's ass. So, Thunder Rosa is still champion. I thought that was the wrong way to go. Next up, we have the Jericho Society versus the Blackpool Combat Club, Eddie Kingston, and Santana and Ortiz. No Wheeler Yuta here, but who cares, right? To be honest, I fast forwarded through this match a little bit because I just couldn't tolerate it. I don't like these brawling type matches. So if that's your thing, good for you. Personally, I was like, it's kind of boring, I watched the end of the match. The end of the match was okay. It was really stupid the way it ended, but it was okay. Overall, basically, Eddie Kingston comes out. Like Daniel Bryan has Jericho in the yes lock for like 15,000 minutes, right? Eddie Kingston comes out from the back with a jerry can and then just like pours gasoline on both Daniel Bryan and Jericho. Daniel Bryan justifiably lets go of Jericho and is like, what the hell are you doing? They started brawling. Dean Ambrose tries to break them apart, right? Dean Ambrose gets pushed from the apron into a barbed wire table. Okay, fine. That's a pretty extreme spot, so he's out for the rest of the match. Jericho gets up, hits the Judas effect on Eddie Kingston, and that's it. The match goes on for another 6 minutes or so, right? But that's it. He does the Judas effect, Eddie Kingston is out. He's just flatlined in the side of the ring, right? He's still in the ring, but he's just like on his back. Meanwhile, Daniel Bryan is trying to fight both Jake Hager and Jericho, and he does a Buzaiku knee on Hager. Then he does a Buzaiku knee with a chair to Jericho, and Jericho kicks out at 2. So what does that say about the Buzaiku knee strike or about finishers in general in AEW? Like a Buzaiku knee, right? The move that beat John Cena, right? With a chair is not enough to put down Jericho. But the Judas effect is enough to put down Eddie Kingston for like 6 minutes. It doesn't make any sense. You need to have some sort of logic behind this. Eventually, the power in numbers is too much for Daniel Bryan to overcome. He gets destroyed. Swagger hits him in the leg with like a bat. Jericho puts on the walls of Jericho and eventually transitions it into like a single leg Boston Crab, right? Meanwhile, Swagger starts choking him with like the rope because the rope came off, like the turnbuckle came off. He's choking him with the rope. Daniel Bryan, in order to sell the choke, right, he has his hands underneath the rope, right? Meanwhile, Swagger's pulling to sell it on his part, so his muscles are flexed, so it looks like he's pulling, like really hard, right? Now the problem with this is, eventually Daniel Bryan doesn't tap out, he passes out, right? But for some reason, his hands are still there on his neck. They would fall limp, but they didn't, right? It's these little details that really make AEW feel amateurish, Next up with the Jurassic Express versus Swerve in Our Glory, which is the name of Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, and Team Taz, which should have won the match. Jurassic Express won in the most ridiculous of ways. Basically, in the end, I think it was Isaiah Swerve Scott, or was it Ricky Starks? I don't remember. One of these guys was wrestling with Jungle Boy. Luchasaurus comes from behind, attacks him, converts it into the Thoracic Express, and they win 1-2-3. Complete throwaway match. I didn't like it. Shouldn't be a pay-per-view. And then in the end, CM Punk beats Adam Page to become AEW champion, just like your boy predicted. Now, here's the thing about this, all right? Obviously, CM Punk was going to win because at Forbidden Door, the Japanese fans, the 5 of them that are going to order this on pay-per-view in Japan, if that's even available, or the 5 of them that are going to wait for like whatever 8 p.m. in the U.S. and wherever the hell this thing's going to take place, the five of them that are going to wake up and that are going to like want to watch this because they're big New Japan fans, they want to see Okada or whoever it's going to be, probably Okada, versus CM Punk because they know CM Punk from WWE. None of these jabrones know who Adam Page is. So, of course, Adam Page is not going to go in there as the world champion. Adam Page can go in there and have like a match with like Tomohiro Ishii or something like that. Like that's where he belongs on the card. Maybe if he's lucky, he'll have a match with like Naito. Although I personally would have booked Naito versus Andrade, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, also should be noted, speaking of Andrade, Roosh, that's right, motherfuckers, Roosh from ROH and from like CMLL Wrestling has joined AEW. Nobody cares. Nobody should. Nobody gives a rat's ass. Maybe it's going to be him and Andrade versus like two from Los Ingobernables de Japón. I don't know. We'll see. I don't really give a rat's ass. All I know is that this event was stupid, and it did do one thing. But that thing merits its own video, which is going to come up next, motherfuckers. And that is the fact that Adam Page had one of the worst title reigns of all time. I'm putting it right up there with Big E and Kofi Kingston. This is one of the worst. It's probably worse than theirs. This is one of the worst title runs I've ever seen in my life. Right there with David Arquette. And I'm not even kidding. Complete garbage. All right. So, without further ado, I'll see you guys next time. Cuckolds. The event gets a 3 out of 10 on a good day. 2 out of 10 on a bad day. I'll give it a 2.5.